Welcome, Neogenians, and hello to everybody who just came out of the Nexus class. We are doing our live stream right now with Philip about the topic of richness, which actually Philip came up with. You want to tell us how you came up with that?
Yeah, so if you see the title of this video, we said this video will make you rich, but not in the way that you think. So I actually had this idea in talking to Susan, as one does. Susan and I meet regularly and discuss our channel and Nexus Academy and what we want to talk about. And I don't know what it was that struck with me, but all of a sudden I remembered this old interview that I had seen with the musician Bob Marley. And in this interview, the interviewer was asking Bob Marley basically along the lines of, you have a lot of money in the bank, you have a lot of possessions, do you feel rich? And I have the quote of what Bob Marley responded to that interviewer. He said, "Possessions make you rich. I don't have that kind of richness. My richness is life forever." And I thought that that was a beautiful quote. And with discussing it with Susan, we thought that maybe that would be a good topic to talk about, because especially in the world that we live in today, there's so much focus on money and wealth and power and things like that, that the idea of richness can be seen a little differently from our point of view. So I have another couple quotes from Bob Marley just to kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse into what kind of a man that he was. And maybe these quotes will highlight what it is that we're going to be talking about. So another quote by Bob Marley is, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and ability to affect those around him positively." Susan and I thought that that was a really good quote.
Yeah.
And he also said, "Open your eyes, look within. Are you satisfied with the life you're living?" And he said many things like that, as well as, "None but ourselves can free our minds, and man is a universe within himself." So we're kind of shifting away from the conventional idea of richness or wealth, because Bob Marley didn't have that idea of richness. His idea was life, as he said in the quote, is my life forever. His experience, his relationship with his family, with his fans, with his music and his passions. So what Susan and I want to do today is to talk about the idea of richness and the idea that that can be subjective for different people and what kinds of richness we can experience. So we actually have some audience engagement questions that we're going to interact with you guys in the chat. Really quick, I want to say thank you to Renaissance Fairy, who's been a member for 44 months at the wavelet level, and says, "I've always believed in the simple things in life." And that's definitely a great thing. That's beautiful to see the little things in life. So before we begin, thank you to everybody who likes this video, subscribes to our channel. We appreciate that. And anybody who gives memberships or super chats, that's very nice of you, but certainly not expected. So thank you for being here with us today. Thank you to our mods, Elise and Mark and Jan, if you guys come in. And so let's get in with these questions. Susan and I kind of talked about some of these, and we thought it would kind of spark interesting conversation with you guys. So the first one that I want to pose to the chat is, so what is richness if it's not just about money? A couple of you have answered that and said it's the small things in life, but we're interested in hearing what you guys have to say about richness. What is richness to you if it's not just money? And what kind of richness do you value the most?
I hear you, Mark. And
Mark says, "Ready to be rich."
Mark is rich in many ways. Money richness is something that is, and hello to everybody, by the way. Money richness is something that I know is an area that you would like to have improved. And I just want to point out that and we did a live stream on Maslow's hierarchy, which if you haven't seen, you can go back and watch, because you need to have needs met in order to be, so you need to have base needs met, the bottom steps of Maslow's hierarchy, before you can get to areas where you're focusing kind of on higher level things that your things that you're interested in, and learning and self-improvement, and consciousness raising, and even some kind of relationship building. If you don't have those met, you're you're going to have a much more difficult time, you know, trying to achieve some kind of happiness if you don't have
Yeah.
those needs met. And of course, we need money in order to do that. Yeah, bold, italic, and underlined all at once. That's you. So
And
what I want
let's
to,
see some of these answers of what people are saying.
yeah, but I
Uh,
just want to make the point, though, because
yeah.
it's important, that we're not saying that money is not important. We're just specifically trying to, uh, and we will talk about money in a bit, having to do with happiness. But I think we're really kind of looking for other types of things that people associate with a richness.
Yeah. And I see some people, Zeus said, to me, it feels like safety and freedom. Angela said, I feel rich with my health and being in cancer remission, which is so great. And then we also have Mark said, richness is choice, it's life options. Nanu says, learning, discovering relationships. Let me see here. Ryan says, I'm starting my math class tomorrow. Once I pass the class, I'll be richer and mathematical principal. Joanna says, it's health, freedom of thought, being able to recognize true knowledge from false knowledge. And Halo says to have a purpose in life, but also freedoms. All of those are excellent answers. And that's the thing. We see a different outlook on richness the more that we experience. And another thing that kind of gave me an idea for this live stream is it seems like it's becoming trendy to look at richness in a different way. And what do I mean by that? If you're a big user of social media, if you follow like YouTube shorts or TikTok or Instagram reels or any of that stuff, at least I have noticed a big trend of people. They will go on trips and they say they have a caption on their video that says, I'm now rich because I have seen this. And it's the pyramids, or,
Yeah,
a beautiful landscape in Ireland, or
yeah.
a really old antique book. And it's interesting to see that people now are looking at those experiences as richness of interacting with the world,
Yeah.
interacting with other people, and having those life experiences.
And I love seeing that. I love seeing, but that people are, equating all of those things with richness. Um, it's very unfortunate. Somebody said, "I wish we could get rid of money." It's you have to remember that money is underneath those things, because money enables you to do the traveling, to
Mhm.
to get to do all of those things. Um, and that's obviously an important point. I'd love to get to the place where we didn't have to use money for things, but remember that it's a tool. So we
Yeah.
don't have to carry our possessions around with us. It's just supposed to be a tool for trading, so that you can do it easily and get the things that you need. But underlying having a lot of the things that provide happiness is the need for money. And I don't want to belittle that,
Yeah.
or
And
that
since
point.
we're being very aware that money is a tool and it's a huge part of what we're talking about, I want to ask you, Susan, and also the chat, like if you had more money than you needed, what would you do with the excess?
Oh,
And you
that's
guys
a
can answer that in the chat too.
Yeah, and that's something I have thought about my whole life. Because, and as Ryan said, money is a means to an end. It should not be the end in itself. I absolutely agree with that. See, I think once you have your needs met. Hi, oh, by the way, hi Jeannie. I haven't seen you in a long time, so it's really nice to see you. Um, I think it's easy to say, oh, money's not important when you have it. When you don't have it, that's probably all you think about, um, for a lot of your time, because you're you're working to meet your basic needs. So I think spectral. So what would I do? Once needs are met, I think working to bring other people who are less fortunate up
Yeah.
is what money should be used for.
I wish more people in the world were like that, especially the ones that have hundreds of billions.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in many, many live streams. It's very important. We should have a society where the basic needs are met, and you don't have the stress of that insecurity for food and shelter and clothing, all of the things, the basics. If we had a society that provided that, the idea, then the conversation about richness, wealth of different kinds, I think would be a very different conversation. What happens is we have a society where people are so fixated on money to the point where they just want to accumulate it. And we also have a point that we're going to talk about later, is what happens when you reach the point, for the few, really few elite who have this, where you reach the point that there is absolutely nothing more that you can buy. Like, you've bought everything.
Yeah.
What does money and wealth then become? But I think, is this a good time to really talk about the sort of the correlation between money, wealth, and happiness?
Yeah, sure. And for anybody who is just in our Nexus session, I kind of mentioned that Susan and I have kind of been talking about meaning, and especially when we're talking about the meaning of richness, our hope is that even though our title is kind of clickbait, that this video will make you rich, it will make you realize the meaning of richness and how we ascribe that meaning. So perhaps you may realize that you are already more rich in ways
some
that
areas.
some areas that you may not have realized.
I have to point out, and we want to hear from you guys. I want this to be, after we sort of deliver some information, I want this to be a conversation where we hear what you guys think. I just want to say two things. Hi to my friend Charlotte, who I just saw came in, and also Elise, one of our fab moderators. Mark and Elise are both in here. Elise just wrote quotes by Bob Marley on this that popped into my head. Possession makes you rich. I don't have that kind. Elise, were you here in the beginning when Philip read that quote and said that it's that little interview that is the reason for this live stream? It was because Philip told me about and sent me the actual little interview
video clip. And Elise added a quote that I did not have, which is, some people are so poor, all they have is money.
Oh yeah, that hits hard. And all of these things, they're all sort of tied together. They're different aspects of the same discussion. So that's also, I didn't think so, Elise. I thought you missed it, which is hilarious that's what popped into your head, because it's literally what we're talking about.
Just really quick, thank you to Trader Kaz for becoming a member at the wave function level. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.
Oh, thank you, and welcome.
Just getting back to what you said correlating. I think you said you had a couple articles, right, about wealth and happiness?
Yeah. So when Philip brought up this, great minds think alike. When Philip brought up this subject, because again, it was just a little conversation we were having, and Philip said, "Oh, let me send you this clip of an interview with Bob Marley," and I said, that reminds me of a study. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, where the result was that happiness, increased money only goes up. Your happiness only goes up to a certain level, and then it plateaus. And I looked up that that study. It's from 2010, and what the finding of these people who did the study, what they found was that happiness increases with income and this is at the time, 2010, to around 75,000 to like 100,000, but everybody always talks about the 75,000 mark, after which emotional well-being plateaus. And beyond that, you can get higher life satisfaction, but not necessarily this happiness.
And who did that study?
It's okay. I've put all the links in the description below. That study was Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton. So the link for that, it's the title of it is High Income Improves Evaluation of Life, but Not Emotional Well-Being, from 2010. And the data was collected several years prior to that, but the study came out in 2010. So I found that was interesting, and I told Philip about that, and you came back with this story about this developer who...
Yeah, so if anybody is familiar with the game Minecraft,
right,
the game Minecraft, the guy who developed that, this is all from what I have read. I do not play Minecraft. I tried it once and it was very, blocky and frustrating for me. But anyway, I had read that the designer of Minecraft was very passionate about it. I think he developed it mostly by himself or maybe with a small team. And eventually he ended up selling the game and became super wealthy. And also, a result of that, he became depressed. And I think the quote that he gave was he had never felt more isolated in his life. Like, he had a big house, he had cars, he had whatever he wanted. He became very, very wealthy, but he couldn't relate to other wealthy people, and he felt isolated and hard to relate to people that weren't in his same situation. So even though it was a very good thing that he was able to sell his game, in turn it became something terrible for him, because it sounds like it kind of wrecked his life a little bit. Wealth for him did not do what wealth for somebody like Elon Musk would do. Elon Musk is very, very wealthy, one of the richest men in the world. And he loves the power of that wealth. Whereas this Minecraft designer guy, he didn't have that power. And when he sold his game, it was very different from the life he had before. So there's a contrast there.
How much money did he make? Anybody know?
I don't have a figure. Somebody could probably look it up, but I know it was a lot. I want to say it was like 2.5 billion or something. Let me look.
Okay. So I'm going to carry on with the study.
Sure. Oh, it was 2.5 billion. He sold it to Microsoft.
It's not anywhere near Elon Musk, but
I can't imagine having hundreds of billions.
Yeah. Now, Mark, hang on to your point. Mark just wrote, much of the data in the psychology of happiness has found that the happiness that money can buy has a peak, but also has limits or a point of diminishing returns. Well, I looked further into this study done in 2010. I had been going on that information since the first time I heard it, but then I came across an article it was actually in Forbes magazine that said that experienced well-being rises with income even above $75,000 a year. It completely contradicted, this was 2020, 10 years later, completely contradicted this prior study. So I looked into the study itself. I didn't read the Forbes thing much beyond that, but the second study, which is there it is, experienced well-being rises with income, and he found that it just keeps going up. So that then the question arises, what's going on here? What's going on with this?
Ryan left a comment that kind of correlates with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan, for being a member for 7 months at the waveform level. Says happiness/depression are a result of brain chemistry. All the money in the world can't buy a healthy brain chemistry.
That is, we're going to also talk about that. That is a really good point. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of elements to look into. You can't just say, money alone is going to, cause that everything, all of the results are due to increased money. There is brain chemistry. There is external factors like depression, clinical depression, or if you're grieving, if someone dies and you're grieving, somebody handing you a whole lot of money isn't necessarily going to make you go, oh, now I'm happy. It doesn't work like that. And thank you very much, Violet, for saying take care of myself. I have COPD. It's not going anywhere. So I cough. I'm sorry. Most people are just so used to it. I appreciate it. I try.
Who did that second study?
Okay, the second study was, I have to keep figuring out how to not actually accidentally close the stream, but go and find this. This is by Matthew Killingsworth. Okay, so I'm just going to call them studies 1, 2, and 3, frankly, because I'm not going to remember that.
And all of those are listed in our description of our video if you guys want to look at those.
If you looked, and I found it interesting. It's really the third study that I'm going to get to now, because I know that we don't want to spend all the time talking about this. But the third study was in 2022, so 2 years after the second one. And this data confirmed the flattening pattern only for the least happy people. So this study, happiness increases steadily with income among happier people, and even accelerates in the happiest group. So that was really interesting. Hi, Lucifer. Really interesting results. So if you read the study, it will explain to you how they figured out where the information, where the two first studies went wrong. And
is this the one that you have the graphic for?
Yes. So but that has to do with the happiness percentiles part. So if you want to know how they figured out that the reason there was this problem is because they hadn't figured out that there's a group of low happiness people where, and let me actually put this up on screen. If you look at this, so on the going along the horizontal axis is income, and the vertical axis is happiness. So for people with low happiness, you can see that increased income, it goes up and then it plateaus. That's the overall results that the first study found. But he ascribed those results to everyone, regardless of what happiness level they are. The second test came back with results that were near the top. If you look at the 85 percentile, so happiness increases, but then when it gets to a certain amount, it actually gets steeper happiness out of increased income. So this third study broke it down into the different levels of percentiles of happiness. And like I said, the bottom one, for people who are the least happy people, for those people, increased money does not produce more happiness. Okay, let me just turn this one off. So then I started thinking about this, because that I find interesting. And here, I just have to find a place I can. Okay, so what I want to talk about is why. Like, why do we think that happens? What happens? Like, why? I mean, for one thing, some people, like, not everybody starts at the same level.
What's the cause of the stark difference?
Well, yeah, but it tells you that not everybody is the same in terms of we're all at a same point of happiness, like starting point. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have low happiness, and again, I'm thinking those are people who are clinically depressed. That's something that's brain chemistry, or are have external some external issues
Yeah.
like
Elise also
death.
says societal restrictions also lead to depression and oppression, but that's more about resources and support and well-being than wealth.
Yeah, and again, exactly that those things have to be taken into consideration, which is why ultimately, and I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but there's a lot of points to be made in here, and I think this is a really interesting discussion. That's why for us as Neogenians, we're always going to pop back to uh, making sure that struggle uh, um, is that kind of struggle to get the basics, to be able to survive. Those things shouldn't be there. Struggle should be about having to do with improving yourself, working hard to gain new knowledge or new skills or something. That kind of struggle, as we've talked about it also at length. But it's always going to come down to trying to even the playing field for everybody, doing the best you can, so that there aren't um, parts of society where they start off negative, they start off at a disadvantage. We need to take care of all of those things. That's like a given. But what happens? This is what's interesting me. What happens when you start thinking about like the happiest people, and more income leads to definitely in terms of income, even a spike in happiness.
Yeah, I always joke around and I always say people who say the money can't buy happiness don't know how to spend it the way I do.
Yeah,
But I'm a generally happy person, and I think
you are.
that's a important distinction to be made, because
Yeah,
I was talking with Susan the other night and we were talking about people who are perhaps born into wealth, or they're just so used to that lifestyle and they're not happy. And one of the examples that I gave was, if you are like on an airplane and you see a rich guy in first class and he's just done it so many times that he just is not happy with the luxury of it. He's kind of burnt out on doing that so much. And it's kind of a distinction
yeah,
between somebody like that and somebody like me and Susan, who,
yeah.
if we were to fly in first class, we
Well,
would be very excited.
that that's my story. That I always say, I mean, I definitely was born into I had a weird, I'm not going into this tonight, but I had a weird situation in how I grew up, because both my parents worked, and so I grew up in an area where everybody else had a different level of living. And things are relative. I know that there's I was very fortunate. I will never not say that I was very fortunate, and I'm still fortunate. But it was just, I felt like a really out of
Mhm.
place, like a fish out of water in the area that I lived, because my family situation was very unlike others. Anyway, um, I have always been very, very happy and grateful for the things that I have gotten. And I definitely know, like when I would travel, my husband and I, we go, or cattle car was wedged in the back and stuff. But there have been times my sister, who has more money than I do, has treated me. She took me to England. I was telling Philip the story about how I got to go first class to London. I've only did it the one time, and it was so much fun. I will never forget it. It was just like, yeah, I can't imagine living like this, but I got onto into my little cubicle, and I was bouncing up and down with excitement, because this is
Yeah.
not something that I would normally get to do. But there was a businessman across from me, and I didn't understand how he could look
He didn't seem
so
into it.
bored. Now, to be fair, he was probably flying back home to England after
Mhm.
spending a day or whatever in New York, giving a whatever business thing, or the opposite. He was going over there and he was tired and he needed to sleep. But he just put his little goggles on and went to bed, and he didn't want to partake in any of the fun stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I am partaking, because the flight attendant actually said I was refreshing, because she was used to people who were, more, I guess, more jaded. And I was just like, oh my God. I was so excited. And then the other story that I have is another time I got to go on a trip because somebody else, my parents took us on their 50th anniversary, and it was a cruise. I've never been on a cruise, and it was it was the smallest boat. And we went just for a few days, but still it could have been like the most luxurious thing ever for me. I was beyond excited. And I was at one of the little things at midnight where they put food out and everybody goes, and you're just like, it's like a stereotype of everybody just running in and grabbing things and whatever. And I was sitting in a corner with a man who seemed very sweet, but he just looked tired. And I was
Like
like,
he
are you?
said it all before.
Yes, and he kind of came out with that, because I was bouncing up and down with, oh my God, I want to experience all this stuff, because this is not something I'm going to get to do on a regular basis. And apparently he had and did experience it on a regular basis, because I said, are you going to go get the whatever what they just brought out? And he said, no, no, you go ahead. I've done it. And he kind of said it like that. I've done it. And I was like,
So that
didn't.
brings us to the next point of what does that tell us about the limits of material wealth? So we're talking about richness. What kind of limits does that bring?
Um, yeah, this is something I've often wondered, like, would I ever get to that point where I was jaded? See, I can't imagine living like that all the time.
Mhm.
See, for me, I think what makes things, the reason that I get excited, because it's special. It's something different. It's like, it is something very, very special. And like when you see kids who go to the amusement park and they don't get to go very often, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow, or at all, maybe it's their one trip, and it has always made me appreciate the things that I have gotten, especially because my parents grew up, I've heard the stories from my mother growing up with not that much, and so she instilled that in us, being very appreciative for things that you get. But I think if I lived like that all the time, I think this is why I like to give things to other people, because I get so much satisfaction from somebody being happy with something that they wanted and now they have it, because I can
Yeah.
see that in myself.
And the opposite end of that spectrum is almost when you get whatever you want and you have more than you would ever need, you almost stop caring about that stuff. And just
Yeah.
an example that kind of popped in my head is, sometimes you see families that are very wealthy and they give their kids whatever they have ever wanted.
Yeah.
And like, for example, 100 toys for Christmas. There's so much of it that kids don't really care about
Yeah.
the toys that they're getting. And just really quick, thank you to Joanna for being a member for 44 months at the wavelet level. Says where focus goes, energy flows. Thank you, Joanna. And Zeus also said being filled with appreciation for what you're experiencing is the best way to feel rich. And I agree with that. And here in just a little bit, we're going to talk about some of the different forms of richness. And I've always wanted to go to Egypt and see the pyramids. I would be one of those people that put the caption on my video that says, I feel rich now that I've seen this. But there's
Yeah.
many places in the world. And for me, that kind of experience where I would be able to journey somewhere and have that life experience, that to me is that kind of richness.
Yeah.
And experiencing it with people that I love too, that would be great. So,
Yeah.
just to kind of pivot from that, how are we pointing to an internal or like a purpose-based form of richness. That's what I'm interested in talking about.
Yeah, and that's where I was kind of getting to in thinking about the people who have the high levels of happiness. I think, and then money just increases it. Because this is my feeling, and tell me whether or not you think you guys agree with this. That I think that the people who are highly happy people are ones who use the resources they have to do things like Elise was talking about creating art. So if and this is sort of like fulfilling your will in life, that when Mark talks about that, Aleister Crowley, if you're doing that, you're doing the thing that is your passion, is what you are meant to be here for, and you're using your increased wealth. So let's say your annual income is going up. I can definitely see that's your happiness would also go up.
Yeah.
If you're stuck at the bottom where nothing helps you because you have either some external traumas or something, or brain chemistry that keeps you from it, I can see where it would plateau. No more money isn't going to do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it comes down to your happiness is dependent on having the basics met. And Elise said this in terms of having needs met. Yes, I'd much rather my struggles be how to accomplish an artistic endeavor than paying rent and buying food. So, as always, happiness is going to come definitely from having those things met and then being able to pursue what it is that is your passion. Now, some people
Yeah.
don't do that. Some people, I think, have no idea about focusing on meaning, which is what you want to talk about, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll get there. They don't know what to do, so they just blindly buy stuff, and they're just like, well, what else might fulfill this? And
Yeah.
nothing ultimately fulfills you.
They always say that as trying to fill the hole inside of you
Yeah,
that is a never ending hole, which makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
And honestly, I feel like I've been at that point at different points in my life, trying to find fulfillment in different places. And with our Neogenian system, especially with psychogenesis focusing on inner growth, you can see things like what you're describing and what Elise is talking about. Of once you have your basic needs met, using that kind of wealth for your inner growth, like furthering your education, or maybe you want to enhance your wisdom and, take some kind of course, like a spiritual course, or have different experiences and kind of raise your self-awareness.
yeah,
Those are a different kind of richness that I'm more excited about.
yeah. And I mean, for some people, like Jeannie said, wealth and money can open up a world of travel and knowledge. For
Yeah.
sure, traveling can provide you a lot of happiness, interacting with people, seeing new things. And again, you don't have to go, the first class route. There's a lot of people who just backpack around.
Yeah.
My parents, when they got married, they bicycled and backpacked around Europe
What was that
for.
movie? It was based on a true story. A kid who came from a rich family and he was tired of it, and I wasn't it Into the Wild or something like that,
Oh, was that him?
where he cut up all his credit cards and his social
Yes,
security card and just backpacked out into the wilderness. He did end up dying in the
in
wilderness,
a
but
bus.
he was
Yeah,
tired of being in that life of wealth, and I
yeah,
think he felt incomplete and
yeah,
not his true genuine self, because he had this life where everything
yeah,
was made for him,
yeah.
prepared for him, done for him.
I think
um,
being jaded because you have everything is a real thing. Now, if you don't have money, you're going to look at that and say, "Oh, wow, that's stupid because you had so much money. Because when
Mhm.
you don't have it, it's very important that you get it. If you don't have those needs met, that's
Yeah.
awful. Which is why, again, we want to make sure that before we start talking about happiness and fulfillment and all of that meaning, you really did do need to have those needs met. Mark said that fool died. Yeah, he was eating something he foraged that took more energy to digest than it provided. I did not
Yeah.
know that. I just know he
And
was
he had
found
like
in a
no
bus.
supplies with him. I don't think he took a tent or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But I think just looking at that story, if I had to guess, I would say that he was seeking the form of richness in the form of independence, independence from his family wealth.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's not a great story. He did die, he made foolish choices and things
yeah.
like that.
I
But
never
you can kind of see where he came from.
Yeah, I never saw the movie. I've just heard about him and I know the story about how he was found.
Mhm.
But I agree with you there, Mark. Absolutely. I don't, that was definitely not smart. I think
Yeah.
that he had, I don't think he was completely in his right mind about that, but I
And
think
I
he
think
was,
if I remember correctly, there was like a not a campsite, but like some kind of safety building just a stone's throw away from where he died.
really,
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Like some kind of I don't know if it was, what do they call them, forest reserve places,
Oh, right.
like
One of
not very
those.
far from where he
Oh,
died.
that's really sad. Um, but anyway, what do you guys, what do you guys think about um, what we've just talked about in terms of, you know, the type of person or um, what's going on with with somebody whose who happiness does go up when they're given more money. Like how is that different from somebody not at the bottom, because I think that those are issues that that we understand, but maybe somewhere more in the middle. And how does that whose happiness doesn't go up as much with increased money? Because I've said what I think, that it's something within you, but I'm interested to see what you say. Giving money away makes you happier than keeping it yourself. there's there's a lot to that, and I think that my whole thing has always been, if you have your needs met, I don't I know some people have to have a very comfortable lifestyle, and I've always just wanted just the minimum of what those needs are, met, where you're safe, you're okay. And after that, I value the relationships and community. In fact, I have a question for you guys. um, I want to make sure that I articulate this properly, because I asked you earlier, like, if, let's say, you have your basic needs met and you have a little bit more than that. You're not super rich, but you have family, friends, community, where you fit in, and it's a good situation. And then somebody comes along and says, would you trade that wealth of relations, community, would you trade that for X amount of money? I don't know, fill in the blank. um and I know
$1 million.
everybody always says a million, but maybe, I mean, 10 million. Would you do it? Like, think about it and then let us know just what you, if you would or not. I'm
Laura
curious.
left us a comment that says, how much money is enough? John D. Rockefeller's answer was just a little bit more. At his peak, Rockefeller's net worth was about 1% of the entire US economy and owned 90% of the oil and gas industry. That's
Wow.
it. That's insane.
See, that little bit more, that Scrooge McDuck thing.
Yeah,
um
it's really
yeah,
gross.
yeah, yeah, where it becomes that becomes that sickness of you just want more. And while you guys are thinking and typing, there's a lot of no's coming in. I'm definitely a no on that. Because just imagine I'm not saying you're going to take this money if you take the $10 million and you no longer have your family, because that's what you've given up. You've given up family and the friends and all of that system, that were the relations, the community that you had. It's not like you can just take the money and go create a new one to replace it. I mean, you'll be without that. That would be really sad. But Halo said, no, it wouldn't make sense unless you were just going to travel forever. But imagine traveling alone, because I'm not even saying you're going to get community or whatever in your traveling either. You'd be so alone. You'd feel really alone. Would the money
Kind of
be
like
worth
that guy
it?
who sold Minecraft saying that he had never felt more isolated. And
Yeah,
he didn't even travel. He would just bought a new house and had all this wealth and couldn't relate to anybody.
yeah. I mean, I
Joanna says no, capital letters,
that's
big
all the
N.
stuff the unhappy billionaires can't buy. Yeah. And it also comes with, having a huge amount of money that you're just given. Now you've got people coming into your life and all they want is your money and they don't care about you at all. That's really horrible to think about. Um, yeah, but Bridget, it's not a matter of going alone. It's a matter of, because there's a lot of people that would travel alone. I'm talking you're foregoing, you've traded.
Like
uh,
giving up forever.
you've given up that deep relationships. Okay, you have to talk because I'm going to
That's
cough.
all right. But I think the trend of answers seems to be the same for everybody so far, anyway, saying no, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't give up their family, or really all of that stuff for money. Mark says I'd rather have 5 to 10,000 a month that flows no matter what than 20,000 that can evaporate overnight if I displease a boss.
I love that point too. Yeah. I mean, this is why in my little, like perfect world situation, everybody has those basic needs met. You don't have to stress over them. I think that the stress that's caused by insecurity, um, is very detrimental. And it causes a lot of other people to like hoard things and to judge people who don't have it.
Yeah,
That if you're not wealthy, somehow it's your fault. And that doesn't even, cover the subject of the inequity that people have. I'm sorry, I'm coughing. You have to talk
that's all
again.
right. Speaking of this, I was also telling Susan about a movie that I had watched called Blank Check, the 1994 kids movie where this kid gets given a blank check and he fills it out for $1 million and he starts buying stuff and he's buying toys and whatever he wanted and experiences and stuff. But he starts to realize that he's on his own and by himself, and he doesn't have his family with him and he's running out of money, and it kind of puts that into perspective. What would you spend your money on if you just had this dumping of wealth that you could spend on whatever you wanted, but your family wasn't involved? Like, you couldn't share it with them, you couldn't be with them. You see in the movie he kind of took on this new identity, because when you're a kid, taking $1 million, you have to you can't just say, oh, I'm 11-year-old Preston, this is my $1 million. So he kind of became dissociated from his family and he was really unhappy. But there are other kinds of richness, and we do have some to talk about and kind of compare and contrast with you guys, which we've talked about quite a few of them already today. Let's see.
But I'm sorry. I know I'm going to start coughing again, and I've just been coughing in
No,
Philip's
you're
ears.
fine.
But Bridget, you have your mom, but do you also have any, like, you must have some deep friendships, other relations, excuse me, and you'd be giving up that for the money. I mean, there's a lot of people that like to travel alone, do things
Yeah.
alone, but still have that.
And also your sense of community. So think of like the Neogenian community or other community groups that you are a part of or things like that. Imagine giving up all of that just for money and having no, relation with those things anymore.
Yeah. So I don't think you'd want to give those up, right, Bridget? Because that would be part of the deal to get the whatever amount of money. It would be giving all of that up. And I can't even imagine how miserable I know I would be. So you have all this money, but you're just alone. That would be
Yeah.
awful. And Mark said all of my adventure travel dreams include my daughter, excuse me, who also needs a college fund and a home base wherever we live. I'm never thinking about only myself when you think about money. And my heart goes out to you because you're in that situation that should not be, where you don't have that security, and that's very stressful. People should
Yeah.
not live like that. Think of we're missing out from what people could produce, could give to the world if those things were met.
Yeah.
And again, we could go into a huge rant about this country
Yeah. But that's why I thought that
specifically.
this would be such an interesting topic to discuss in a live stream because richness is different and also it can change. So already we've talked about financial wealth, which would be like your money and your assets and luxury and things like that, which aren't inherently bad in and of themselves. We've talked about experiential wealth, which is like traveling. I said I wanted to go see the pyramids and have that experience of standing somewhere ancient where thousands and thousands of people have had experiences over the dawn of time since the building of the pyramids. And then also, right now, we're talking about relational wealth. So, where your deep relationships, strong community, the people that mean a lot to you, like Susan means a lot to me. You guys mean a lot to me. My family mean a lot to me. And I would not give that up for any amount of money. And
Yeah.
Susan and I, when we were talking about this live stream, we were discussing relational wealth and saying how that can seem like it's undervalued sometimes, but that's critical to us to be able to build our connections, especially with you guys in the Neogenian community, with our family becoming closer to people or our loved ones. And then we also have another type of wealth, which is consciousness wealth. So
Yeah.
on our channel, on the Neogenian Oculus and in the Neogenian community, we are focusing mostly on consciousness wealth, even though we don't call it wealth, but we are trying to help people gain self-awareness and wisdom and raise awareness, and so that we can change the world. And that is, to me and probably to Susan, one of the highest forms of richness. That's what gives us passion to do these videos and do these live streams and try and help our community grow and learn. So that's why I thought looking at different types of richness would be an interesting discussion topic.
Um, this community has provided a richness to me that is so wonderful. I can't even, it's hard to put it into words how important it is, how wonderful it is, and how meaningful it is. Because it's wonderful to come in contact with other people who are searching for the same things and also
Like-minded.
like-minded. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I would not trade any of this. And my family and all the people that I know who aren't in this community, that oh, thank you, Elise. So yeah, Bridget, absolutely. See, I don't think I can say this enough, that I'm not we're not trying to belittle the necessity of money. It's very unfortunate that it is that way. Money is necessary to get the things that we need. It's when you get to a level of money that, and some levels are absolutely obscene. I remember my dad telling me that when someone becomes so rich that they've bought everything they could possibly buy, they have all the homes they want, they can travel whenever they want, they have their own private jet, and they have the big yacht, with the full crew at all times. They just everything. They can't even remember what it's like. They don't know what money is worth anymore. Because they don't do any of that themselves. That kind of situation. After that, there's nothing else to get. Money becomes power, and at that point, what you're buying is changing the world the way you want it to be changed.
Yeah.
So think of Elon Musk.
Influence.
And yeah. So it's the power to not just fulfill your own desires, but to actually mold the world the way you want it to be. And that's a huge topic for another day, but there's a lot of danger in that. I think wealth is learning, Bridget. Yeah, there's a lot of I think now, view the way we can view richness that is beyond money. But it would be so nice if we could get to the point where we didn't have to automatically say, oh, well, I'm still trying to meet my basic needs. And because it shouldn't be like that. We can build a much better world where those things are already taken care of. And
if you guys would like to go back and watch our video called What is Transcendence, where we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is such a thing as so much money that you couldn't give it all away. Like, you'd have to structure multiple nonprofit orgs to even begin doing pure philanthropy. I did quickly look up what is the percentage that the extremely obscenely wealthy people give away. And yes, there are some that have signed. It's a voluntary. It's not legally binding. It's like morally binding. I forget what it's called. I think it's the Gates Foundation and somebody else. And I forget what it's called, but it's the, where you're going to give half your wealth away or something. Those things are great. But it was very small percentage, I think, of wealth that the super wealthy give away. And they exist on a level that is not anything that we can comprehend. I mean, how much did Bezos spend on his wedding? $350 million or something?
A lot.
I mean, it can't even comprehend it. So,
and Spectral says, I have a lot to think about, and that's good, because that's what we hope for at our channel. We love to make you guys think. And just to end the video, we want to say that we are more rich for having you guys as our community. So thank you.
Yes,
thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we're not sure when we're going to live stream again, but hopefully we'll have one in a member stream before the end of the month.
I think it's it's in 2 weeks. And it'll be the one where we have our members after it. So yeah, everybody's tired. We just had a long night because we just came from the class as well, most of us. So we will be doing another one in 2 weeks at the end of the month. Thank you for coming. This was a good one. I enjoyed a lot talking to you guys about this topic. So have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you, I guess, tomorrow it's Monday already. For Morg's live stream. See you tomorrow night. Night, everybody.